Monica's farewell becomes a family battlefield. Danny's desperate plea leads to explosive hospital confrontation. The death of Monica Quartermaine has sent shockwaves through Port Charles, but for the Morgan and Quartermaine families, her passing has become the catalyst for an explosive confrontation that threatens to tear relationships apart forever. As preparations for Monica's memorial service begin, a heartbreaking family drama is unfolding behind the scenes, centered around whether young Scout will be allowed to say goodbye to the woman who meant the world to her. Monica Quartermaine passed away peacefully in her sleep on September 17, 2025, discovered by her grandson Danny Morgan in a moment that will forever be etched in his memory. The beloved matriarch, who had served as the heart of the Quartermaine family for decades, leaves behind a legacy of love and devotion that extended far beyond blood relations. Her funeral, scheduled for the week of September 22nd, promises to be one of the most emotional farewells Port Charles has ever witnessed. For Scout Quartermaine, Monica's death represents another devastating loss in what has been an incredibly difficult year. Having already lost her mother Sam McCall, Scout now faces the reality of never seeing her cherished grandmother again. Monica had been a constant source of love and support in Scout's life, maintaining special traditions like wishing her good luck on the first day of school moments that now carry even greater significance in light of their final encounter. Drew's iron grip tightens. The tragedy of Monica's passing has been compounded by Drew Kane's increasingly controlling behavior toward his daughter. Currently recovering from gunshot wounds sustained in early September, Drew has shown no signs of softening his stance regarding Scout's contact with her extended family. His restraining orders against Scout's relatives remain firmly in place, creating a barrier between Scout and the very people who could provide comfort. During this difficult time, Drew's restrictions extend to Scout's brother Danny Morgan, grandmother Alexis Davis, and other family members who have been an integral part of Scout's life. This isolation has left Scout struggling emotionally, desperately missing the family connections that Drew has severed through legal means. The little girl's repeated requests to visit the Quartermaine mansion and spend time with her loved ones have been consistently denied, with Drew maintaining his rigid control over her social interactions. The congressman's behavior has drawn criticism from across Port Charles, with many viewing his actions as cruel and unnecessary. Despite being shot and facing his own mortality, Drew has shown little empathy for Scout's emotional needs or her desire to maintain relationships with people who genuinely care about her. His continued antagonism toward family members, even in the wake of Monica's death, has created a powder keg of tension that threatens to explode at any moment. Danny's desperate hospital mission. Faced with the prospect of Scout being unable to attend Monica's funeral, Danny Morgan takes matters into his own hands with a courage that would make his late mother Sam proud. The teenager, who has consistently advocated for his sister's well-being, decides to confront Drew directly at General Hospital, where the congressman continues his recovery from the September shooting incident. Danny's decision to approach Drew stems from his deep understanding of what Monica meant to Scout, and his recognition that missing the funeral would cause his sister immeasurable pain. Monica had been a consistent presence in Scout's life, offering love and stability during uncertain times. The tradition of Monica wishing Scout good luck on important days had become a cherished ritual, making her death all the more significant for the young girl. Armed with genuine concern for his sister's emotional well-being, Danny enters Drew's hospital room with hopes of appealing to whatever humanity remains in his uncle. The hospital setting adds gravity to the encounter, with Drew still bearing the physical reminders of recent violence, while Danny carries the emotional weight of his family's grief. The sterile environment of the medical facility becomes the backdrop for a confrontation that will have lasting consequences for both families. A plea met with cruelty. Danny's approach to Drew is marked by sincerity and desperation, qualities that should have resonated with any reasonable adult. The teenager's plea centers on Scout's emotional needs and her right to say goodbye to someone who loved her unconditionally. Danny emphasizes Monica's special relationship with Scout, highlighting the traditions and memories they shared, and the importance of allowing Scout to find closure through attending the funeral service. However, Drew's response reveals the depth of his transformation from respected community member to vindictive antagonist. Rather than showing compassion for a grieving child or consideration for Scout's emotional well-being, Drew responds with coldness and mockery. His reaction demonstrates a complete disconnect from the values that once defined him, replaced by a need to maintain control regardless of the human cost. Drew's harsh words to Danny extend beyond mere rejection of the funeral request. The congressman launches into a verbal attack that includes cruel references to Danny's character and family background, suggesting that the teenager is following in his father's footsteps regarding criminal behavior. These comments strike at the heart of Danny's identity and his relationship with Jason Morgan, turning what should have been a compassionate conversation about a child's grief into a personal attack on the teenager's worth and family legacy. The cruelty of Drew's response is amplified by the setting and circumstances. Here is a man recovering from gunshot wounds, who should understand vulnerability and the importance of family support, instead choosing to inflict emotional wounds on a teenager whose only crime was advocating for his sister's emotional needs. Drew's behavior in this moment crystallizes his transformation into someone willing to hurt children to maintain his sense of control and power. Breaking point. Violence erupts. Danny's reaction to Drew's cruel words represents the breaking point for a teenager who has watched his sister suffer under Drew's restrictions while maintaining his own composure for far too long. The combination of grief over Monica's death, frustration over Scout's isolation, and anger at Drew's heartless response creates a perfect storm of emotion that explodes into violence. The physical confrontation occurs swiftly, with Danny's fist connecting with Drew's face in a moment of pure emotional release. For a teenager who has tried to navigate this family crisis with maturity beyond his years, the punch represents the culmination of months of watching Drew systematically destroy Scout's connections to her family. The violence is not premeditated or calculated. It is the raw response of a protective brother who has reached his absolute limit. The hospital setting makes the physical altercation even more dramatic, with medical equipment and the sterile environment providing stark contrast to the very human emotions driving the confrontation. The sound of the impact echoes through the room, marking a point of no return in the relationship between Drew and the Morgan family. In that moment, Danny crosses a line from peaceful advocate to someone willing to use force to express his frustration and anger. The aftermath of the punch brings immediate consequences, as the reality of what has happened settles over both participants. Danny's action, while emotionally understandable, provides Drew with exactly the ammunition he needs to further his campaign of control and vindication. The teenager's moment of lost control becomes Drew's opportunity to escalate the conflict to an entirely new level. Medical intervention and legal threats. The physical confrontation between Danny and Drew might have escalated into something far more serious had it not been for the fortunate presence of hospital medical staff. Doctors and nurses, alerted by the commotion, quickly intervened to separate the two combatants and restore order to the hospital room. Their professional training kicks in as they assess both Drew's condition and Danny's emotional state. Recognizing that the situation requires immediate de-escalation, the medical staff's intervention serves multiple purposes beyond simply stopping the fight. They ensure that Drew's recovery is not compromised by the physical altercation, checking for any damage to his healing injuries or surgical sites. Simultaneously, they recognize that Danny, despite being the apparent aggressor, is a teenager acting out of grief and frustration rather than malicious intent. Their presence provides a buffer between the two family members, allowing emotions to cool before further damage is done. However, Drew's response to the medical intervention reveals his true priorities. Rather than focusing on de-escalation or finding a peaceful resolution to the family conflict, he immediately begins calculating how to use Danny's momentary loss of control to his advantage. The congressman sees the physical assault as validation of his previous claims about the Morgan family's violent tendencies and an opportunity to remove Danny from Scout's life permanently through legal channels. Drew's threats of legal action represent a calculated escalation of the family conflict. His promise to file assault charges against Danny and his declaration that the teenager will face jail time transform a family disagreement into a potential criminal matter. This threat demonstrates Drew's willingness to use the full weight of the legal system against a grieving teenager, showing how far he has fallen from any semblance of moral authority or family loyalty. The price of desperation. The confrontation's aftermath leaves both Danny and Drew changed, though in different ways. For Danny, the moment of violence represents a failure of the peaceful advocacy he has maintained throughout. The custody crisis. The teenager who has consistently tried to reason with adults and find diplomatic solutions to Scout's isolation now faces the reality that his emotional outburst has potentially made things worse for his sister. Danny's realization that his actions may have harmed rather than helped Scout creates a new layer of guilt and regret. The punch, delivered in a moment of protective fury, now threatens to become Drew's justification for even stricter controls over Scout's life. The teenager must grapple with the possibility that his attempt to fight for his sister's rights has inadvertently provided Drew with the evidence he needs to paint the Morgan family as a dangerous influence that should be kept away from Scout at all costs. For Drew, the physical assault provides validation of his narrative about the Morgan family's inherent violence and instability. His ability to provoke a teenager into losing control demonstrates a disturbing understanding of psychological manipulation and emotional warfare. Rather than recognizing his own role in creating the confrontation, Drew focuses solely on Danny's reaction and how it can be weaponized in his ongoing campaign to isolate Scout from her extended family. The legal threats hanging over Danny create a new dynamic in the family conflict, transforming it from a custody dispute into a potential criminal matter. Drew's promise to pursue assault charges against a teenager reveals the depth of his willingness to destroy family relationships in service of his need for control. The congressman's actions suggest that no family member, regardless of age or circumstance, is safe from his retribution if they challenge his authority over Scout's life. Implications for Scout's future. The hospital confrontation and its aftermath have created a new crisis for Scout, who now faces the possibility of losing access to her brother as well as her other family members. Drew's legal threats against Danny represent an escalation that could result in the teenager facing serious consequences for his moment of emotional outburst. The prospect of Danny potentially being arrested or jailed adds another layer of trauma to Scout's already difficult situation. Monica's funeral, which should serve as an opportunity for Scout to say goodbye to her beloved grandmother, alongside family members who share her grief, now becomes another battleground in Drew's campaign of isolation. The little girl's desire to attend the memorial service and be surrounded by people who loved Monica becomes secondary to Drew's need to maintain control and prove his authority over every aspect of her life. The medical staff's intervention, while preventing immediate escalation of violence, cannot address the underlying family dynamics that created the confrontation. Drew's continued recovery in the hospital provides him with a platform to portray himself as a victim of Morgan family violence, even as his own behavior toward a grieving child reveals the true source of the family's dysfunction. The sterile hospital environment becomes a symbol of the emotional distance Drew has created between Scout and her family, with medical professionals serving as unwitting participants in a family drama that extends far beyond their ability to heal. As Port Charles prepares to say goodbye to Monica Quartermaine, the Quartermaine and Morgan families face a crisis that threatens to honor her memory with continued conflict rather than the unity she would have wanted. The woman who spent her life bringing people together now rests in peace, while those she loved most engage in battles that would have broken her heart. Next, we're diving deep into the heated controversy surrounding Willow Tate. Is she truly a neglectful parent? Or does she have what it takes to step up as the guardian for young Emily Scout Kane? In the swirling drama of Port Charles, Willow Tate finds herself at the center of a storm that's got fans buzzing with opinions, as her turbulent divorce from Michael Corinthos unfolds, complete with the heartbreaking loss of custody over their children Wiley and Amelia. Willow is now boldly pursuing guardianship of Scout. This push comes in the wake of Drew Kane's shocking shooting incident and the devastating passing of Monica Quartermaine, leaving a gaping hole in the family structure. To some viewers, Willow's string of scandals, including her steamy affair with Drew and her calculated efforts to tarnish Michael's reputation, scream that she's utterly unfit for such a responsibility. Yet, there's another side to the story: her unwavering affection for Scout and her resolute determination and to provide stability paint a picture of a woman ready to redeem herself. With legal hurdles blocking alternatives like Alexis Davis and Molly Lansing Davis, due to Drew's ironclad restraining order, the big question looms: will Willow's ambitious bid soar to success, or will it plummet in flames amid the scrutiny? Delving into Willow's complicated history reveals a tapestry of missteps that clash dramatically with her innate drive to nurture. Her life has been nothing short of chaotic, marked by that illicit romance with Drew which not only shattered her marriage, but also exposed her vulnerabilities in the harshest light, adding fuel to the fire. Her schemes to undermine Michael, perhaps born from desperation during their bitter split, have left lasting scars, prompting many to label her as a bad mom whose impulsive decisions have directly impacted the well-being of Wiley and Amelia. Imagine the courtroom tension as these past actions are dissected, with critics pointing to moments where her choices prioritized personal turmoil over parental duties, like late-night confrontations that echoed through the Quartermaine mansion. However, flipping the script, Willow's pursuit of Scout's guardianship highlights a profound maternal fire within her. Stepping forward when Scout is most vulnerable after Drew's brutal attack, she positions herself as the ideal candidate, a stepmother who has shared countless tender moments, unlike Alexis and Molly, who are sidelined by those unyielding legal barriers stemming from old family feuds. Willow argues her case with a history of genuine care. Recent glimpses into her therapy sessions suggest a growing self-awareness, where she's confronting her demons head-on, perhaps even journaling her regrets to build a stronger foundation. But the real test lies in whether she can sway the courts and the skeptical residents of Port Charles, proving that her love outweighs her flaws in this high-stakes battle for redemption. The spoilers from General Hospital are ramping up the intrigue, with the massive void left in the Quartermaine legacy directly influencing Scout's uncertain future. Monica's untimely death has ripped apart the family's core, and with Drew's recovery hanging in the balance after that violent shooting rumor swirl, it might involve shadowy figures from his past military days. Scout is essentially adrift in a sea of instability. This vacuum strengthens Willow's position as she campaigns to assume guardianship, emphasizing her stability over other potential claimants like Nina Reeves, whose own checkered relationships could complicate matters further. Picture Nina, with her history of dramatic interventions, clashing against Willow in a potential custody showdown that could unearth buried secrets from the Crimson magazine offices. Even Tracy Quartermaine, known for her sharp tongue and iron-fisted control, might throw her hat in the ring. But Willow's strategy hinges on demonstrating her reformed character through everyday acts, like organizing Scout's school routines or planning wholesome family gatherings. Yet, Michael's seething anger, fueled by betrayal, combined with the broader family's doubts, especially lingering resentment from the Daisy Corinthos Gilmore kidnapping saga, where Willow's involvement raised eyebrows, threatens to derail everything. Fans are abuzz with theories, speculating that an unexpected ally could emerge, such as Jason Morgan, who might testify to Willow's nurturing side based on her supportive role with his son Danny during times of crisis, perhaps recalling quiet evenings where she helped with homework or offered emotional support amid Jason's own absences. If Willow's efforts falter, Scout might end up with a surprising wildcard guardian, like a long-lost relative of Monica's. Whispers suggest a mysterious sister from her pre-Port Charles days, whose rival could introduce fresh alliances and rivalries, turning the Quartermaine estate into a powder keg of new conflicts and revelations. At its core, Willow's quest for guardianship represents a pivotal crossroads that could define her entire arc. In General Hospital, should she manage to convince the judges of her worthiness, it might spark a path to true redemption, potentially thawing her frosty relationship with Nina through shared moments of vulnerability, or even paving the way for tentative reconciliation with Michael over co-parenting dreams. Envision heartfelt scenes where Willow organizes a family picnic, slowly rebuilding trust brick by brick, as Scout's laughter becomes the bridge mending old wounds. On the flip side, if her history of infidelity, manipulative framing tactics, and emotional volatility dominates the narrative, she could face total defeat, losing not just Scout, but any semblance of family restoration, perhaps retreating to a quiet life outside Port Charles to reflect on her choices. The fanbase remains deeply split on this. One camp views her as a deeply flawed, yet profoundly loving mother, capable of growth through adversity, drawing parallels to other soap opera heroines who've risen from the ashes. Others deem her too scarred and unreliable, arguing that her patterns of self-sabotage pose real risks to an innocent child like Scout, who deserves unwavering security. As the storyline unfolds, the burning question persists: will Willow emerge triumphant as Scout's steadfast protector, harnessing her inner strength to overcome the burdens of her past? Or will the cumulative weight of her errors drag her down into further despair, leaving fans on the edge of their seats for the next explosive twist?